The following story contains disturbing spiritual content and may be unsettling. It is shared with the hope of finding understanding and help for anyone who has experienced something similar, so that the narrator might escape this terrifying cycle and perhaps offer solace to others in a similar predicament. A few years ago, Daniel Miller, a 28-year-old man, moved in with his sister in Flagstaff, Arizona, into an apartment that seemed ordinary on the surface. But almost immediately, a strange shadow fell over their lives, emanating from their upstairs neighbor. She was an aggressive woman, prone to inexplicable fits of rage, growling and spitting at them. She often made terrifying noises in the middle of the night, as if trying to tear through the floorboards. Daniel's sister had nearly been pushed down the stairs by her a year before Daniel moved in. This uncharacteristic violence baffled Daniel and his sister, both quiet, kind, and reserved individuals. Daniel was convinced the woman was possessed. The strange events began right after Daniel settled in. For the first time in his life, he suddenly started experiencing uncontrollable seizures. On one occasion, a violent seizure caused him to break his foot, and later, his ankle, requiring two painful surgeries with a third still pending. It was particularly challenging because Daniel had a history of opioid addiction. For this reason, he wasn't prescribed post-operative pain medication, which he understood. However, the first surgery proved too much for his newfound sobriety, and he eventually relapsed into opioid addiction, specifically fentanyl. It was then that Daniel realized his seizures weren't just a medical condition. As the fits became more frequent and intense, a shadowy presence began to haunt him. It constantly appeared around Daniel, a chilling reminder of an unseen presence that left him feeling perpetually uneasy. Always watched. One night in Flagstaff, as Daniel was about to step into the bathroom, the door abruptly swung open and slammed into his back. The sudden impact made Daniel jump, his heart hammering against his ribs. He initially thought it was his sister, but quickly remembered she was working the night shift at the hospital. A shiver of ice ran down Daniel's spine. He stood there, trembling, staring at the wide-open bathroom door, a vague dread beginning to creep in. Daniel's battle with addiction was also a grueling one. He had been actively working on his sobriety, even attending a rehab center right after surgery, only to relapse again. His sister, deeply disappointed, had cut him off after that relapse and still refused to speak to him. But Daniel didn't give up. By the end of 2022, he finally found the help he needed and successfully overcame his addiction. He has been clean since November 2022 up until now. At 32 years old, he has a stable job, managing a small team at a car dealership, and has a loving girlfriend. Although Daniel sometimes felt like he was losing his mind, a feeling of extreme tension constantly engulfing him, he knew he wasn't hallucinating or experiencing any genuine psychosis. He was simply facing something beyond his comprehension, something he couldn't explain through science or psychology. This is when things truly escalated. Daniel was diagnosed with epilepsy after experiencing nearly 100 seizures within 1.5 years, requiring multiple hospitalizations. Each seizure was a moment Daniel felt his body was taken over, a profound sense of helplessness. On July 28, 2024, a horrific car accident landed him in the trauma ICU with two fractured vertebrae. Daniel was terrified and utterly alone. Fear gnawed at him every day in the hospital, and loneliness further depleted his spirit. Fortunately, he didn't need surgery, but he still had to take over a month off work and spiraled into a deep depression, a black hole of despair that seemed to swallow him whole. About 2 weeks after Daniel returned to work, one night in early October, as he lay in bed, he felt a chilling presence. He opened his eyes and, through the gap in the curtains, the pale moonlight streamed into the room, just enough for him to see a blurry shadow moving rapidly around his bed. It had no clear shape, just a mass darker than the night, flitting in and out of view. Daniel's heart pounded in his chest, the sound so loud he could hear it echoing in his ears. The sheer terror paralyzed him. The sensation of being watched, of something unseen touching him, sent shivers down his spine. This incident terrified him so much that he didn't dare sleep in his apartment for an entire month, opting to sleep in his car, which, despite its discomfort, felt safer. But even in his car, Daniel couldn't escape it. One night, he felt something grasping his feet and calves, a cold, disgusting sensation crawling up his body, making him recoil, tears welling up from sheer fright. Daniel started recording videos of strange objects moving out of place, doors spontaneously opening, things falling and breaking without explanation. He noticed a faint, high-pitched sound like a TV turning on, interspersed with the strange, shrill voice of a woman. The voice echoed in the stillness, like a whisper from beyond, making the hairs on his neck stand on end. Finally, Daniel mustered enough courage to sleep in his apartment again, but that only made things worse. He began to notice more of these shadowy entities appearing. They didn't just flit by, they caused uncomfortable pain in his genital and anal regions, something Daniel was deeply ashamed to admit. But he knew the pain was real. He was constantly touched, cold, repulsive touches, like icy fingers gliding over his skin, and this thing followed him everywhere, even to work. He felt an invisible presence tracking his every step, every movement, leaving him in a state of extreme tension. Daniel also started hearing faint, ominous, horrifying sounds like distant horns, a deep, resonant sound, like a warning from another world. Then, a constant, piercing hum, like thousands of insects buzzing in his ears, driving him to the brink of madness. Along with these were strange electronic noises that Daniel couldn't explain, like the sounds of old machinery operating in another dimension. The climax was a sound he could only compare to a portal sucking something through, a powerful, whooshing sound like a gale, accompanied by an invisible pull that made him feel as if the air was being sucked from his lungs. Then suddenly, a bizarrely normal human voice, strangely ordinary, screamed "hey" at him for about 2 seconds, before the sucking portal sound resumed, as if it had dragged the voice away, leaving Daniel alone in the terrifying silence. Daniel had recorded several videos of these phenomena, undeniable proof of what he was experiencing. Recently, he moved to a new place, but things seemed to be getting worse. He's working with his church, and they are in contact with an exorcist, hoping to find a solution. Daniel doesn't feel possessed in the traditional sense, but this thing is definitely haunting his reproductive organs and anal region, keeping him in a state of constant, extreme vigilance. Every moment a battle. Daniel prayed online for deliverance, but nothing worked. A sense of despair swelled within him, as if all doors were closing. Daniel even saw a psychiatrist for the depression these events caused, but she told him he wasn't psychotic and advised him to contact a priest, as if what he was experiencing was beyond the realm of science.